start sharing my screen before I forget that this week. All right, everybody should be able to see my screen there. So again, today the webinar is going to be on access control, and what we're going to cover today mainly is going to be best practices for the installation and selling Speco access control, managing end user expectations out of the box, accessing the user interface, enrolling cards into a database, or adding users or card holders, integrating with Speco surveillance facial recognition, where that's at, where it's going, the Speco mobile app. We'll talk about that a little bit and see if we can't do a live demo. And also, as always, future roadmap on Speco access control. We kind of led off with that with introducing you to Brandon, and so he'll be a big part of that roadmap. And as always, we'll have plenty of time for review and questions at the end. If you do have any questions during the webinar, feel free just to drop down here in the chat box and put your question here, and we'll answer it as we go, or we'll get to it at the end. So starting off as always, and if anybody has anything that they want to see directly, if I can't answer it, we'll see if Brandon can answer it, or if not, then we'll circle back to it on a later email. But if you have anything directly you want to know, it's a smaller crowd today. I think we have 12 people on board, so we can personalize this to any of your needs. So if you want anything, feel free to drop a request in the chat box. We're going to start off at the website as always at specotech.com. And we're going to do a quick review of our products as far as access control and as they go. And, this is going to focus on the actual access control side of Speco, but do keep in mind that we do have the capabilities of doing access control through our camera system as well too, utilizing things like our license plate recognition, utilizing things like our facial recognition. We can also trigger outputs, which can in turn open door strikes and trigger mag locks and trigger gates to open. So, we have a lot of integration with ourselves. Today is going to focus more on the hardened access control security side. Right off the bat, we're going to talk about our A1 door controllers. Our A1 door controller is our single door solution. And the nice thing about we were on a webinar today, we were discussing, a problem with another end user was that they were tired of doing all computer based. So they have to have a set up dedicated computer on site that runs their software. It's very difficult to update, manage. Everything with Speco are web based. So accessing those controllers is going to be done by going into your HTML toolbar, your toolbar up top here, and just typing in your IP address, and we'll get into different ways to access these controllers, but it's a very simple way to do it. No on-site computer is needed. So the A1 door controller is going to be your solution for a single door, all licensing installed. It can be mounted on the secure side up in the drop ceiling in the wall. It does come with a little cut-in box, but a great solution. If you need the power supply, because this is not 24 or PoE, this is powered by 12 volts. So if we want the power supply, we have to make sure that in the parts there, we put a P at the end, the PS, so for power supply. We have our A2E4 and our A2E4P, which is our two-door controller expandable to 4. The P is with your power supply. So keep in mind that if you're going to need a power supply, to make sure you keep that P on the end of your part number. That's going to include the power supply into your unit. And you'll see here that under door lock wiring there, it's actually showing you how to wire up your power supply with a fail secure DC door strike, fail safe DC door strike. Anything that you need to know on how to wire this door up or how to wire up your peripherals is going to be on the inside door on the wiring diagram here, which is going to get us a little bit into the best practices of access control. We have door strikes out in the field. We have mag locks. We have different door contacts. We have request to exit motions. We have all these peripherals on different devices. And the nice thing about it is that if you're changing out any type of system, that most of the time, all of these peripherals are going to just change right over. It's just going to be changing out the wiring from one board of an access control system into the Speco board of the access control system. And being that we have everything really nice and labeled here, it's just a matter of landing the correct wires to the correct inputs and outputs. But again, everything is all browser-based, Linux-based operating systems. Cans, you can have up to 4 doors in a can. So if we're expanding out to 4, 8, 12, 16 doors, you will need to have multiple cans. No battery backup is included, so you'll need to buy your own battery backup, but it's something to keep in mind that when you're doing these installs, to make sure that if you use a battery backup, to have a battery backup for that unit. So going back into parts, again, we talked about this is our 2-door kit, expandable to 4. And then these are your 2-door expansion boards or your expansion modules. We do also, to kind of simplify things, we offer our AC Kit 1 or AC Kit 1B and 1S. And these are just going to be different types of kits that are going to allow you with readers, certain door counts, and the type of credentials it comes with. So these are pre-made for you. If there's a kit in here that suits your needs that you sell a lot, or you just want to have a single code, this is what we install, this is what we sell. We can put together a kit for about anything you need. And also, because we do have our camera system integrates with our access control, which we'll go over a little bit later on today. Obviously, we have kits that are cameras and access control to simplify a lot of this process for you too. As far as credentials go and as far as readers go, we offer Bluetooth readers. The Bluetooth is going to work with our separate app. The Bluetooth credentials come in a package of 25. It's important to remember that once that credential is used or somebody loses that phone, that credential is burnt. You can't reuse a Bluetooth credential. Other credentials are going to be the clamshell cards, the key fobs that are very popular, and then readers, Bluetooth readers. We have Bluetooth, pen pad, and swipe readers. So a little bit of anything that you're looking for. A lower end just reader. So any of these lights here can be programmed the green or red, multifunction. So, and the most beautiful thing about this is that we actually have inventory in stock and lots of it. So your typical clamshells, these can be logoed with your logo on them as well, more of an OEM look. And then, one of my favorites here is going to be the long range reader. This will work, I believe, 200 or 300 feet away, paired with the AWRT4, which is our key fob remote. And if you like the all-in-one integration with cameras and access control, we do offer the N8WA4 and then N8WA4P, which is your 8-channel PoE recorder with the access control panel built into it. This is what I demo from here at my house. Great, easy, all-in-one can. But especially if you're going to do video and access integration, it has a built-in switch. So everything, all you need is one network cable coming to it for your outside network, and then you need your cameras coming into the bottom. So great kit here. This is something if you install access control and cameras, all in one can, so we don't have to worry about rack space, shelf space. Easily goes up on the wall, pull all your wires behind and hide them. A great item to look at here. That's the N8WA4P. So moving on a little bit, that's going to cover the material side of the products. And for those dealers that are on here, if anybody needs access, some things that I use that can help you also navigate our products. If you're not familiar with building access control kits, this is what I use. It's pretty handy. I come in here and so enter the job and the number of doors. If we're going to do 15 doors, the system's going to automatically tell me that I need 4 A2E4s, and that's going to be if I have the power supply, I don't need the P. If I don't have it, I'm going to add the P. And then I'm also going to need 4 A2Ms, which is a 2-door expansion board. So that's going to give me a total of 16 doors because they're going to come in groups of 2s. As you'll see down as I come down, let's say that I wanted, and this is going to tell me the type of read range I have. If I wanted one long range reader, I wanted, let's say for simplicity's sake, I wanted 14. These, that'd be 15. So it's going to give me my types of readers that I'm going to have. So doors without reader, it's telling me that I have a problem. Okay, so I need to add one more to here. So doors without readers are now none. Now I can come on down a little bit and select my credentials. Let's say that I wanted 25 cards. I know that I'm going to need, if I have a Bluetooth reader, I'm going to need a 25 pack of, or they come in 25 packs. Keep note right here, your quantity. I want one of those, and I'm going to need one of my key fobs for my long range. But again, you can select what you want, and then as you come down, it's going to put together a little bit of a bill of material for you, showing you your parts. But more importantly, it's going to show you what licensing that you need as well too, like the AP36. So if this is something you think you could use, just I can drop it in there for you, or you can just shoot me your email address in the Q&A and I'll forward it out. This is one item here that's on a dealer side that'll help you put together products a little bit quicker. The other thing I have for you here is going to be our control. So it's going to give you a parts list of our controllers. Going to give you a list of our readers and tell you about the reader, about the information, our credentials, and give you the information, give you read range. A lot of this stuff will help you build the licensing. It's going to tell you the right licensing level, the notes on it, and then what does each licensing do for you. So, you know, this is all stuff that we've compiled together. This stuff's pretty much well out there. It's just, this is what we put together, a little bit of a simpler form for you to look at. So again, if you want more information about the products, then I can send those over too, and it'll help you build your systems a little quicker. So now what we're going to do is talk about, once we install our access control, we're going to move more into what does this look like. And let me first go to products, access control. Once we install a access control panel, it's obviously going to have its own IP address. And if we go to software, this smart IP finder here, you're going to want to download the smart IP finder. This is going to give you access into finding all of, it's just going to be an IP scanner for our access control panels out in the field. It'll allow you to find them, change the IP address, change your network settings, change username and password, instead of having to change your computer settings to that subnet and then change them that way. So I think we got a Q&A here. Okay, we've got one person wanting them. We'll send them over, Ben. So the smart IP finder, the finder, the way I found that was I went into any of our controllers, went into software, smart IP finder, and then download that. You'll see that it's going to be this file here. Yeah, I'm not going to put in my password there, but so that's going to be your tool. It's going to allow you to be able to find your access control panels out in the field and to search for them. So once we get our access control panel booted up, I'm going to log into one here locally. So all I've done here is I would have already went in, changed the IP address to my local network. I'm going to enter in my password, and we're going to come to our GUI here. Out of the box, if this is the first time that we're running our access control and we've not set it up yet, you're going to see this screen right here, which is going to be our quick and easy wizard. So what this is going to do is take you through, I think, was this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps. They're going to just simplify the process of setting up this unit for you. And the end of the day is that, you know, 75% of your installs, this will be 100% of the install. So as we go through it, we're going to tell it what language we're in. We have a holiday group of all federally observed holidays built in. If you need to add any holidays, you can do so by hitting new, name that holiday, start and then end, then you can put it into different holiday groups if you choose to. So the next step is going to be creating schedules. So we're going to have schedules in here by default. It's going to be always schedule 1, schedule 2, house demo is one I've created. So always is going to be basically always on or always off. So what we're able to do is create schedules that are going to be, an example of a schedule would be the school that we're working with. They are always closed, or the doors are always locked from all the time. So always is exactly what it's set up now, from 0 to just 24 hours a day. Always is a schedule. Schedule 1 could be the front door that I know is going to be working off of a schedule that's open from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then I could know that there's another schedule that's going to be this door is going to be open from 9 to 5. So I can create schedules for either doors that I know are out there or groups of doors that are going to follow that same timeline. So once we create the schedule, we can come in here and look at our doors, select the single door, scroll down, hit the edit button, scroll back up, and then we can come in here and name particular doors, which I can name it front door. We can put it on a different floor, and obviously we need to create another floor level if there is more than one floors. We can then start programming that door and saying, okay, let's talk about the reader. Is this an in-out reader or an in-reader only? And then what is that in-reader name? Is it going to be a card or keypad? Card only, keypad and card. That's important to note if you're using things like keypads and pin numbers and a card. The and or the option card or keypad. See, so we got a question. Yes, I would recommend whatever you would export it out in whatever format of your previous database of credentials. Now, if we're talking about Speco to Speco, yes, very simple. If you want to export something else into it, I would recommend adding somebody to this database, exporting it out, which would give you the CSV file in that format, and then just taking your other credentials. Yes. Then take the copy, drag and paste over into the same format. As we coming down a little bit, so we're going to program the reader. Is there a door contact on that door? The door contact is going to do things like tell you, is that door held open or is it held closed, and allow you to have certain time restrictions. It's also, is it going to have a request to exit, which the request to exit is going to be more or less associated with a mag lock, and it's going to be tied to that door to where we can come in here and change, we can change what the request to exit function is. And then also say request to exit activates the door lock, which would in turn release the lock. Door lock mode, door status, alarm output, threat level. This is important as we start to see things later on where we can assign threat levels to doors, to where we can ignore a request to exit. And this would be a situation like if a threat level in a school was elevated to high, and we could ignore the request to exit, which would mean that, because everybody knows what happens when you walk behind a maglock door. If a child or somebody walks to that door, and they could actually open the door. So if we knew that we had this door was an elevated, under elevated condition, we could ignore that request to exit, which would mean that nobody could walk by a door and accidentally let somebody in. And anti-passback options here: first person in rule, manager in rule, two-person in rule, which just requires certain card holders to be the first or the last person in. First person in, or two people in rule, or a manager comes in before a certain schedule will roll out from there. So it could be always locked down until a manager comes in. Once a manager comes in, then we would move to a different schedule, which could be always unlocked. So this is going to do this. You're going to do this per door, and then save that. Once we do our doors, then we're going to come in and then we're going to talk a little bit about access levels. Access levels is literally just we're associating doors and schedules. So you'll see here that we have access level always is the schedule. The access level name is always, the description is the entry gate. Doors is the particular door 1, and schedule name is always. We're just associating, which allows us to associate groups of doors with schedules. If we were to go to new access level name, we'll just do test. We could write a description, settings, so schedule. We can select a certain schedule where we're dealing with individual doors or groups of doors, and then we can come in and bring those particular doors that we want to create that access level for. The next step is going to be who's going to be entering the building, who's going to be entering, who are we putting into the system here? So if we want to come to new, what we need to enter in is going to be in asterisk here. So what I'll actually get Brandon assistant here marker. So what we have to do is first create a user. We need any ADA timing or exemptions. We can also assign threat levels to these people as well. Whenever you use your account, if they're going to be using the VMS platform, you do need to have that API license. So if we were to go in to come down here, say Brandon, we would then be able to select Brandon, come to add a card. Then if we scroll up here, you'll see that we can auto scan that in the door to associate it automatically. Or we can come on here and tell the card format that we want. Here's our default formats. But if you were to scan that, it would fill that in. Card number. All we got to do is enter the card number in, and then there's an active, lost, stolen, inactive. So obviously it's going to be an active card. Card type, normal, toggle passage, relock, one time. So we could have it like a one-time card, or we select what type of card we want. Access level. Individual, and then so we could start bringing him onto the access levels that we wanted. So if we just did always, that's the group of all and always. Then we come down here if you want an expiration, so never expire, or if you don't want it to expire, we can do an activation date and an expiration date. And then we would just save, and there's no number in there, so it's not going to save, but that's how easy it is to add a new user to the card in the easy setup process. So next thing, we'll come over here to the Smart Save. And from here, the last page, all we're gonna be able to do is come in here and change. Well, what do we want to see? Dashboard, log, sitemap, report, log report. The dashboard or the sitemap is probably the most common to use. And I always recommend saving to SD card and USB. Always do backups. And so you're going to save these initial settings as you came in. It's going to log us out. We're going to log back in, and we're back in the system. We will get to that here in just a little bit as far as the bulk updates. But yes, there is a way to drop in a CSV file of updates, and we'll see if we can't get to that before we're done here. Now let's talk a little bit about what we see here. And the overview is our dashboard is going to give us a lot of the same things that we went through. Let's see if I can move this box out of the way. A lot of the easy setup process is what we're going to see in a lot of these same screens. But because you see it, I want to go over what you're seeing. And remember, so we are logged into this recorder. A couple questions that were asked today during training was, what do we see? This is a web-based software. So if you're not familiar with it, our controller is going to be in the field. You're going to have a network cable plugged into the switch, into the controller, and you're just going to be able to access it from the web or the web browser. So there's no hardware needed to be able to interact with your system besides the computer access. Access not required. This bottom left button was the easy setup button that we can push anytime and come back into the easy wizard. The plus sign is going to be going into, is going to be to add users. The settings or is going to be our system administration for our clock. That's going to be the same access here as our settings here, but our settings is going to give us a little bit more options with our system administration and our system settings. Now licensing. It's important to remember that every four-door kit should come with licensing applied to it out of the box. If it doesn't, always connect that into the network. Before you program the unit or as you're programming it, make sure it has internet access. This will allow it to contact our licensing server and make sure that the licensing is applied. If it is not, then we're going to come down here into edit. And so out of the box, if there's no licensing applied, all you're going to see here is this product right here. None of this stuff will be filled out. So what we're trying to do is get to this licensing key. So what we can do is once it's online, go to licensing server. It's going to show us where you're using the licensing server. You'll just need to copy the license key you see here. This out of the way. Come down, and then you would right click, paste it into here and apply a license key. So that's a way to manually apply the license, or you can plug it into the network. Or if we wanted to add any type of other license, we can go to the licensing server, everything that's associated. So let's say that we have it, we wanted to get another, you'll see here my options that I have. My licensing keys are NVR, video tagging, link, RMC, open API, elevator key, client key, license key. So let's say I didn't see one of these, or I was adding a license, or I had to go buy a license from Speco. We're going to associate that with an email address. So I don't see what I want here. I can select next. I can enter the email address that it was sent to, and then the security code. There's a 4-digit code that was sent in that email. I would enter those two things and then just hit next, and it's going to pull up the licensing code for you that was sent to that email address. So that's a way to get to this screen here if it's not automatically pulling up on this screen. So it would be next, enter the email address associated with that license, and then the security code, and hit next. And again, if we want to see our server key, client key, elevator key, we can switch those over to which one we're viewing at the time. And it'll show us which elevator key we have, type 1 elevator. So pretty simple. Until you've seen this process, though, it's kind of complex. The main thing is make sure that it's connected to the network and it has sufficient time to be able to talk to our licensing server. As we move forward here, we'll go back into some of our advanced settings here. Now I'm gonna pull up another account here, our headquarters demo site, because we have the it's a little bit more of a live look into a demo here, where you'll see here that we have actual doors associated with the access control. You can see where we're having web user login, web user access, card holder data added. So as I was into this system earlier making changes, then I think that's the same thing I was at here. As I'm making changes, you'll see that I'm adding information into the log. So what you also see is that there's camera icons next to each one. In this browser, I'm not going to be able to view this feed. It is with Internet Explorer, and we are currently working on a plugin to be able to make this Chrome capable. But you will be able to see the auto tag of the camera. So we have the NRE recorder integrated into this access control panel. So every time that we have, I'll show you a little bit about what this looks like. I think I can get into it on this one. Not, we'll hop over to the other one. Let me get in here. So we get a lot of questions on how easy is it to integrate access control into or your cameras into your access control. So it's as easy as coming over to NVR settings. I've already added the one from my house here, new, basic. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to name that unit. I'm going to say it's a Speco NVR. I'm going to enter in the local IP address of that unit there. The RSTP port, the internal port, the ID, which is my username and password. And then down here, it's important to make sure you enter in the max number of channels that are on that unit and hit add. Once you hit add, it's going to bring up a recorder. It's going to show it down here on the bottom of the screen. Now, if we go back into NVR channel, once we've added that recorder, you'll see I have 16 channels. So I can select on number one, and I'm going to say front door. Okay, door one. I can even test that if I want to see the pop-up of the video. I don't have a camera on this one. But what I can do is I can then start selecting what events do I want to edit. So then I can start selecting what events: access granted, access denied, request to exit in, door unlocked, door open, held open. I can start selecting what events do I want this to start associating a camera feed with that trigger. So we would save that, and that's as easy as it took to get it to the integration of the cameras in the recorder. See if I can get in here, just like you'll see here on the right. Denied threat level violation channel 1. So you'll see that we have different ways of triggering and then associating a camera with that. What we can do from there is you can select the video tag auto pop-up, and when that event occurs, it will allow you to be able to see it's just going to pop it up. So if we're sitting there, we're trying to manage 10, 15, 20 doors on a building, and it's impossible for one person to see everybody that's coming in or going. Not so much, I don't really care who's batting in. It's more about the access denied or things like doors held open, but I can have that stuff pop up too, to where if there's an access denied, it pops up, and then I can then see what's going on, and I can either manually unlock or manually lock or unlock the system if it needed to be vice versa there. Or if it was something that was an issue, I could raise a threat level I could raise a threat level to get to low, mid, elevated, high, or severe. And I can do this from the mobile app. I can do this from a button that actually triggers it on the access control through programming. But I'm able to do lockdowns in different situations based off of certain criteria. So if I see something going on in a certain area, I can lock down different sides of the buildings. The use case is kind of endless. It's really about what your customer wants at that point. So we've covered the dashboard, what we see as far as the dashboard goes. You can upload a custom EMAP to your dashboard, and you can move around the doors that you see on the system. You can have multiple layers of floors, different floors. So that's a big plus too. We went over our camera NVR feature access. So that's where we can see our card holders here. Then we've already went into new and then added a card holder. So again, access levels is going to be, it's just a quick way to give somebody an access level, associate them with an access level, which gives them credential, which gives them access to doors based off of a predetermined schedule. CSV export, CSV import. This is kind of what we're talking about here for importing. So if you want to batch import, I would obviously add a user or two, so that way it'll put it in the same format, export it out, copy and paste everything back into it, and then come into it and import it. And if it already exists, it can skip or flush and override. So you can, that's how you're going to do the bulk updates. Let's see here. Let's move into schedules. We talked about schedules, the holiday schedule. We can do an unlock based off of a schedule. So doors can be always unlocked based off of schedules. So if this was going to be, we know we had a basketball game, we could create a certain schedule for basketball games to unlock certain doors that we could put on that group. Those devices can be on that schedule. And then we also have things like the one-time unlock, to where we can have individuals, let's say there's a cleaning crew or people are coming in and they're allowed to have access. It's only going to let them in from one time, from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And once they leave, they can't come back in the building. So multiple options for different uses that we can set up. And you can also do this with a pin pad as well too, to where we can add users to only have pin pad access once for between a certain number of hours if their contractors coming to work. So many different uses. We talked about threat levels. Threat levels are going to be different pre-programmed functions that allow you to enter lockdowns or have different functions happen based off of events that cause those functions. Under reports, so we're going to have all kinds of reports. We're going to have our logs, our log reports. So logs are going to be everything we saw on the dashboard, anything and everything that happened to that system. Access reports are going to be more on the user level, which door, which card holder, on people on which access levels. So we can come in and basically search for anything based off of from a user level to a system level. And then how do we want to log those reports? So if we want to say backup files of that, do we want to automatically save? Anything you want can be backed up from a current PC, user PC, SD, USB, multiple forms of backup. And then overall system reports are going to show you where's our resources being used in this system. All right. So on the settings tab, settings is going to give us a little bit deeper of a dive into the programming. It's more on the technical side. We'll kind of touch base on a few things. But as far as main thing is device settings here, again, this is another link into the door, just like we were going into access door, door settings, elevator settings, alarm inputs, alarm outputs, because we do talk a lot about can we trigger. We can do triggers based off of inputs and outputs as well too, to where things can happen based off of this input or based off this input. Let's trigger that output. Elevator actions, controllers. So we talked about being able to have certain controllers as masters and slaves. We went over NVR settings, adding cameras. User settings, so we can define user roles. We can web user accounts. This is going to be if you're using like our remote management console. Just a more in-depth user settings. If you are integrating with our SecureGuard VMS platform, you will need to set up a web user account for that SecureGuard VMS. And if that's something that you all are working with, we can dive in deeper onto that on a more on a one-on-one level. Card formats. It's going to show us our encryption and the card formats that we're going to have by default. You can add new and come in and do a custom card format. The default is going to be on our Speco 26-bit Wigan. Try not to get too on the technical side here. Again, we've already went over card formats, floor settings. So if we wanted to add a new image, so we can come on here and do floor name, school description, could be layer 2, and then we just come in here and choose a file and find the file that we want and then add it, and it's going to pull it on just like this, and that's what's going to show up on your dashboard. So again, we can do door groups, access level groups, and card holder groups. So this is going to be a way to put multiple card holders into groups. So if we have managers, so if myself, I wanted to create a manager, and all this is doing is making it to where it's easier to assign roles to doors. So I know that if I have Brandon and myself as managers, I've created a card holder group. So if I was working with a set of credentials, instead of having to go and select rules for myself or Brandon, I can just create a set of rules or schedule based off of manager access. Back. And then you'll see the same thing for door groups. I can have, if it was all perimeter doors, I could have all exterior doors. Let's edit that. And I can say exterior doors. And then I can say that door 4 and door 3 are going to be my exterior door. And then I'm going to make another one that says interior doors. All right. And so what we've done is just created 2 different sets of doors to where I didn't put a door on there, but we've done interior doors, exterior doors. to where if we're working with, again, a set of users, now a user can have access to interior doors or exterior doors instead of having to individually go in and select each door. It's not very cumbersome unless you're working with a larger system. And if you're working with a larger system, this is something that just makes it a little bit easier as you're setting up card holders for what roles that they'll play in access. Event action event code. So event action event code is going to be if something's happening, what's going to be the outcome of that. Updates, backup, restore. So what client we're running, what software version, what are they going to be? Backup. So we always recommend doing a scheduled backup, especially for larger databases. We can come on here and edit this and select either a backup to an SD, USB, or an FTP offload, and it can back up every whatever time that we set. Or we could do an immediate backup at that moment to FTP server, the user PC that we're residing on to use it, or SD, USB. We talked about threat level settings on what we're going to, and if anybody wants any more detail on that, then we can do a whole training on it in itself. Network settings. So again, your typical network information, you're going to see IP address, which is going to be where we're going to go in initially and change that IP address to match that local network. Or we're going to use the advanced IP, we're going to use our IP scanner to be able to find those access control panels out in the field. Let's go back here. So the RMC is going to be if you're using the remote management console, and what the remote management console looks like is so the remote management console is just going to be your online console. It allows you access to all of your recorders out in the field. So if we go to device management here, you'll see here that I've got one device online, one offline. If I hit the link, it's going to take me directly to that site. It's showing me the MAC address of the unit, what product is it. So I know this one's my A1. This is my 4-door. This is the one we're working off of today. But it's also going to show me I select edit here. That same information, and I can do a reset or a backup link. So the RMC is going to be how you access those access control panels out in the field. Now the RMC is also going to be integrated into our dashboard, very similar. So just like if you're not familiar with our dashboard, Speco-cloud. So just how we're able to see recorders out in the field by utilizing our dashboard. Very shortly, we're going to be able to also bring in access control panels to the dashboard as well. So that's kind of why I show the RMC. It'll be based similar off this platform, but you will be able to also see your doors out in the field, see your controllers out in the field, and also manage those through the healthcare checks. So very exciting news. That's more on the roadmap. But yeah, stay tuned for that because it's going to be an exciting thing to also be able to manage your access control and recorders on the same platform. All right. So I think that covers about most of the user interface. There is also multiple ways to bring in access control and also bring in multiple sites together. So don't forget that we did release our Secure Guard bridge. So we did release our Secure Guard bridge, and we do have the no storage and then the 1 terabyte version. This will allow you, it's running our VMS platform, and our VMS platform is, I'll log into that, but it will allow you to be able to bring in multi-sites with your, you'll be able to bring in access control as well as cameras, facial recognition, integrate things like our gunshot detection. It's going to be pretty exciting what all we can do with the dashboard. So the dashboard, I'm sorry, the Secure Guard bridge. So on the app side of things, I want to see if I can't take a moment here to pull up Bear with me a second. That's not what I meant to do. Unplug this. So I'm going to pull up the app here and I'm going to go over app access, Speco access. Make sure I have everything set up correct. All right, so on the app, you're going to forward port 9000 to the local IP address of that recorder to be able to allow app access. But into the app, oh man, so if we go into threat level, the app's pretty simple to use, doesn't have a lot of options. I'm having foam issues here. So, but we're able to change different threat levels we talked about earlier, from anything from disable to low to severe. And these are pre-saved settings that allow us to be able to change what's going on with the system on site as far as the threat levels and what's happening. So we have card holders where we can view and manage card holders. We see the door icon where we can view and control the door, and then the event log. Let me go on the card holder where we can see the different card holders that are already in the system here. If I needed to go to add, I can add a card holder to that system and then hit save. So very easy to add a card holder. I can come in the doors and see what doors are on my system here. If I go to the information, oops, so far, so I select that door, I can do a lock, unlock, or a manual unlock. And then I can also go into the event log. And gonna love technology when you need it the most. So I'm gonna leave that there. So that's gonna be the Speco Access app. I do apologize for my technical problems. Don't let it reflect on our app. So because it's time to get a new phone. So that's going to be the Speco Access app. And I do, hey guys, if you need trainings on the Access app, we can do that more on a one-on-one basis. Or we can do a webinar just on the Speco Access app. It's about a 5 or 10 minute process, very quick and easy to use. So let's get back into, close that out. Let's take a few of the questions here. Brandon, I appreciate that. Let's see. All right, so Brandon's giving you information there on importing, mass importing, like the AC kit. Yeah, Brandon's accurate. We've done a lot of outside installations. You want to make sure you use a vented, but not only vented, an enclosure that has metal screens up, so that way you keep all of your bugs and things from entering from the outside. Yeah, so great questions, great answers. Please see. Okay, we're going to send that. How do you incorporate facial recognition into access control? So if we're trying to use facial recognition into, if we're trying to use facial recognition and integrate it in access control, the way to do that would be dual factor authentication, to where if I pull back up this camera, so I'm going to let the recorder do the facial recognition part of that. And then the recorder, once it gets a successful recognition, let's see here. So let me do this. So the recorder is going to run the facial recognition. Once it gets a successful recognition of the individual in the group, it's going to fire the output of that recorder, and that output is going to go into the input of the access control panel. So that is going to be the first factor that the access control is going to be looking for. The second factor would be either pin pad, card reader, scan. But if I were doing that, come into settings, down a bit. I just put this purpose. Brandon and I were working with one of these O2 TMLs earlier. First, I need to make sure I've got the detection feature turned on. But more or less what I'm going to do is I need to make sure I already have individuals into databases under face recognition. Go back, which I've already done that. It's precursor. And then go into recognition. So enable a successful recognition. You can also enable a stranger. So parameter settings upon the successful recognition of the group. We'll say homeowners or nannies. Schedule 24/7. If I wanted a custom schedule, I could come in here and edit and then custom schedule the schedule based off you want. Text prompt. If you want a text prompt to go off with the push notification, you can enter one. If you want to enable alarm output pulse, you can, instead of just firing the normally open, normally closed output. But where you would want to trigger would be this alarm out. So configure. We can trigger any of the 4 alarm outputs from the recorder itself, or I can trigger from the camera, which is these 2 down here. You'll see here that I've got actually alarm output 1 already tied to the alarm system. So I could use alarm output 3 and bring it over like that. So you'll see that even if I already have this actual system here triggering based off facial recognition alone. But so by applying, you'll see that now under my successful recognition, under trigger general, the alarm out here is alarm output 3 is going to fire when it gets a successful recognition. So that would be ran into the access control as the first credential needed for dual factor. So the facial recognition portion is actually done from the recorder itself, which if you're following, that's a form of dual factor. It's not a true dual factor authentication because we're just putting people into groups. Now, when the bridge is released, the bridge will allow you access. I think I have a bridge point. The bridge will allow you to actually put individuals into associate credentials with faces. So you will have a true dual factor authentication. So that's all that I have for everybody today. If I will send this over here. Once this is over, if anybody else needs anything, feel free to reach out to me. I appreciate everybody helping on. And we do have, again, Brandon, you want to add anything to this or say anything?
No, I think you got pretty well covered. Thank you, though.
Nope. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody helping on. Thanks for your time, and we will see you next week. And if you have any questions, I'll stay back for a few minutes. Thanks, everybody. Muted as usual.
Oh, dang it.